What's going on, guys? Very important foundational video here talking about the major positions on a total gym or Saudi men's trainer, how you guys can progressively work up to other positions if you guys haven't tried so. I'll also discuss the various pros and cons and how to maximize various movements and primary exercises in each of these positions. So whether you're kind of more advanced and more in tune with this machine, I think you'll get something out of it, but especially if you're a beginner and haven't really thought about this, positions are actually a foundational and very key aspect of maximizing and getting results on this machine. So hopefully if you guys are new to this channel, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this content, especially if someone you know that just picked up one of these machines and wants to really take advantage of its use. Okay guys, before we get going, a couple important things. I got the exterior carabiner clips and the swivel attachment. I'll link these down below. These add necessary extension, other functionality to the machine that'll basically open up other exercises and really just opens up a lot of doors in all these positions we'll talk about. I also got the weight bar attachment down below. This is very useful for kind of like anchoring yourself with your feet. And you'll see a number of unique ways, not just in this first position, but other positions as we'll see moving on. First position we're talking about is one of the most basic foundational natural ones people gravitate towards, especially if you're a beginner, is seated with our feet in the ground, facing away from the tower. This is probably most prevalent for any kind of chest pressing, shoulder pressing if you can get in that position, bicep curls, flies, frontal raises, all sorts of stuff. Main thing I'm thinking about here is most people when they sit in this machine, they just kind of sit like this. I want you guys to think first and foremost, and almost all these things, sitting up, opening up your chest, and then yes, you could sit just upright. That's most people's kind of natural go-to because we're used to sitting in our chairs like that. But with the Saudi bench trainer, I found like it's better just kind of hinge at your hips a little bit. This will, you'll notice right away, start engaging your chest and kind of opening up that, kind of more of that stretch and the initial chest press. So this works out great for a lot of line of action type movements where this is a little more natural than sitting here slouched with my lower back kind of rounded. And then if I do things like a shoulder press, if I was sitting upright, again, it's kind of a weird angle to kind of press. I'm kind of pressing like this way instead of angling a little bit further down. And if I got some extension in the carabiner clips, I can actually do a full extension, a full press right through my ears by leaning more forward. Certainly you can do alternated as well. And then with your feet in the ground, one of the advantages of this, even if you're someone who's a little more advanced in the machine, you can do things like forced reps. I do that a lot in this channel, is I'll sit in this position on purpose, even though I like the secondary position a little bit better, which I'll show you guys in a second, is that now I can kind of drive out and do some forced repetitions here. I also like having this weight bar attachment to kind of anchor my feet. Again, leaning in allows me to kind of engage more of my chest, doing a lot of variety of exercise with heavier external weights. I also like to sit a bit lower on the glide board. If you got more extension, now I can press a bit lower, and what this does, and again, I'm anchored here with this weight bar attachment, feels pretty good, is that I kind of have more of a natural angle pressing right through that chest line that way. And then finally, again, things like foundational stuff like doing a bicep curl. If I don't angle myself down a little bit, you see people kind of doing something like this. But if I lean a little bit far forward, now I can really do a natural bicep curl with that length and extension kind of going through that natural line of action as you would see with the tension done like just a standing bicep curl. All right, next position we're gonna slowly progress into is gonna be kneeling, facing away from the tower. This is probably one of the most scary things to kind of get used to for most people. So a nice little easy transition to get into that is once you feel comfortable with the feet in the ground, then just take your feet off the ground kneeling, and this starts to get people more used to what it feels like to kind of lean a little bit far forward. If you feel like you got some flexibility in your knees and you're ready for this next step, the important thing is don't move your arms around too much. I'm gonna go 1 foot at a time, just like this, sitting nice and easy and stable. If you feel unstable here already and just tightness in your legs, you can kind of gradually work into it, but the important thing is keep a nice closed grip so you don't slip and lose yourself far forward. I'm angled myself into the machine a little bit. I think a good exercise to start is just getting yourself just doing this bicep curl. This is one of my favorite, if not the favorite bicep curl I like to do on this machine. This is a way to kind of practice what it feels like, kind of almost trusting yourself and then comfortable leaning far forward in the equipment. But then once you got that position good, try to get into the chest press. And this is one thing for most people can feel the most scary because they feel like if they let go or lean too far forward, they can come kind of be a little bit uneasy. All right, the next position is a little bit scary. As with all these things, try at your own risk. I'm gonna maximize and use this weight bar attachment. I'm gonna go single leg, I shouldn't say single leg, but one leg up, one leg back on the machine. And what I like to do with this one is I either might put 1 foot here, whatever hand I'm gonna be doing a press or a pull, I like to have that same side leg back. Gets a little bit more of an extension in that side of the body. You can incorporate a little more of the core and the obliques as you're kind of doing that press or this row. Again, kind of scary. You can maybe utilize this Pilates bar attachment to kind of hold on for stability, but If you want more distance, if you get kind of over a wider base, you can kind of bring out this weight bar attachment and kind of stabilize yourself this way. All right, now we're gonna be looking at facing the tower positions. Obviously these things are done more so if we're doing like pulls or rows. You can do curls, you could do rear flies. You can even do some things, you start laying back and doing some lateral raises here. It's kind of up to you how you wanna start breaking those down. But from this position, I wanna sit down just nice and upright. Again, what most people tend to do, since they're holding on to this, they either start hanging back like they're kind of water skiing, but they basically ignore, again, the foundational thing we said in the first one, which is sitting up nice and tall, chest back, shoulders nice and far back. This time, you can sit more kind of a neutral, how you normally would. Keeping your weight dispensed back, not leaning far forward. These are all really common things. But from this position, I got my feet here to keep myself stable. I can go into those curls or rows if I want to. A natural progression for most people, this is a natural progression because their feet for the first time might be coming off the ground, is just lifting your feet up off the ground. Once you get comfortable here, now it's kind of the other end of the spectrum of getting onto your knees. Now here you actually come a little more upright on your knees if you want to. Some people like to jump right into it here, but again, there's all sorts of pros and cons to this. I'm more upright, a little bit of a different kind of an angle. I can then go ahead and sit on my feet. But again, the important thing is I'm gonna kind of keep my hands stable, not gonna move around too much. They're really stable. I'm gonna go one knee, the second knee. I got this weight bar attachment here if I still wanna use this, but otherwise I would start, if you're flexible enough, just sit back, nice closed grip, thumbs wrapped around the bar, and I'm sitting up nice and tall, and this is the ideal position. If you wanna progress and start doing some things upright, you can do that. A lot of times I'll even do some things with my opening up my torso. I'll flex my hips or flex my torso forward, and then I'll come back and extend and might do a row. I do some things where I'm kind of sweeping up, where I'm seated and then coming up and progressing up this way. So that's another nice progression if you start to feel comfortable on this equipment. All right, the next one, I'm debating about even showing this, but my point of view, I do it. So I'm just showing it to you guys. Definitely do this at your own risk. You have to be extra careful. I probably advise 99% of people don't try this. And some people say I shouldn't even show you this, not to encourage it, but I guess my point is there's a lot of dangerous activities we're all taking risks at doing. I would argue even most sports are extremely dangerous for most people, especially adults. So with any of these things, do this at your own risk. Yes, you're relying on a lot of moving parts here, so check all the parts and components and make sure you feel really comfortable before you even start doing something like this. I was already used to doing a lot of things like this in the gym, a lot of different crazy things, so I feel really comfortable doing this. But the next position I'm kind of getting into is the standing position on a total gym. This was something I've even heard the founder mention in one interview, how people were doing it. And so the machines were, I guess, not necessarily designed around that, but people have been doing this traditionally with these machines for a long time since they were invented. So just kind of keep throwing that out there. What I do to get in the machine to stand up is, well, first, if you don't feel comfortable here, don't even try this next step. You could actually start progressing into that single leg here. I didn't say this as a nice progression into that position. But what I do is I kind of have my hands here. All the rules apply. I'm not gonna move this around too much. That's gonna be very dangerous. I'm gonna have my hands here, 1 foot, 2 feet, kind of staggered, whatever's comfortable. I can link these shoes, but you definitely want some grippy type shoes that feel really comfortable and stable. You do not want to be slipping and sliding around this thing. Once I'm in this position, that's basically it. I didn't move this around too much. I'm keeping this really stable. I have 1 foot here. Whatever dominant foot feels comfortable. For me, it's my right foot. And once I'm in this position, I'm standing up, I feel really comfortable. And it's just a matter of, again, just curling and rowing, doing pullovers. The one thing you have to be careful is not pulling up too high. I'm gauging the glide board from the top of the tower here. I want to be careful this bottom part doesn't get stuck in the middle, which can happen, and that would kind of throw you off. To me, I feel very safe and very stable doing this stuff, but certainly it's an optional position and one you kind of have to be careful. The risk might not be worth the reward for a lot of people, so take everything I'm saying here with a grain of salt. The next one is just a side-seated position. This is one with a lot of clients. I kind of encourage them, if they feel comfortable, to kind of progress into a kneeling position. You can do things, again, like the cable rotations, just rotating your torso here, head's following the hand, getting a nice full rotation. I could simply sit in here, but I find people start sliding off the glide board. They just kind of feel, for me, it just feels more awkward. And even though it feels more stable, it feels more awkward on my back. So I like to naturally just kind of go up on my knees. Now, sometimes, depending if this tower gets higher, your pant material, the glide board itself, you might be slipping and sliding down the machine, especially if you got more weight on the actual glide board. So I will maximize this weight bar attachment. I'll pull this out a little bit, and I'll rest my foot on the back of that glide board there. And then from here, I feel nice and anchored. I feel nice and secure, but it was a very easy transition. I just simply tell people, kind of sit in your knees first. Even this can kind of feel comfortable. But then eventually just kind of slowly, again, not moving your arms too much here, just gradually raise yourself up, extending your hips out, and then doing that rotation. You saw my next door neighbor, if you saw that video, who was 70-something years old, tried it for the first time and did it very easily and quickly and still does it to this day. So it's one of those things people just don't think about. And I would add, you can do a lot of things from this position. You could do flies, you could do some reaches, and you could do some side curls here. You could do some reaches and presses here. So all these positions open up a lot of doors. All right, the next thing can seem kind of easy. Now when we start talking about actually laying on the glide board, either face down or face up, 9 times out of 10, this is kind of self-explanatory. You're not really messing anything up as long as your head is beyond the glide board. I see a lot of people still get into a position where their face is in the front of the glide board. So making sure you're kind of obviously sit a little further up, but something I see a lot of is when people do like any kind of a back row, they start to kind of just protract their shoulders again, and they're kind of pulling just straight down, okay? You can do that, but what I wanna think about is paying attention to this part of my back. I don't want to keep cranking it right here. I'd like to, if I can, at least in some positions, you can mix it up if you want to. I want to have a nice kind of shoulder retraction in my mid-back as I'm pulling down. That'll allow you to kind of maximize a little more of the lats and not use so much of your arms or biceps to kind of pull yourself down. So from this position, even if I got these little handles on here, I'm really kind of driving and retracting my shoulder blades back, doing it this way versus just simply pulling it and protracting my shoulders from here. All right, then getting into the lower body, for the most part, it's self-explanatory. There's really 2 positions I talk about. The second one's a little bit harder to kind of practice and initially get into. First one though is just the face up on your back. And I kind of use the weight bar attachment to kind of pull myself into that bottom position. This can be a nice progression for some people because a lot of people initially might start a little bit higher. The advantage of kind of starting lower, at least kind of mixing it up, allows you to kind of engage a little bit more of your glutes. And the glutes is something that's a little bit lacking in a lot of people and just to kind of turn on. So anytime your hips are below your knees, that initial press off should kind of come from this position, basically your butt, and then we get to hear your hamstrings and your quadriceps kind of coming in right about there. So I should say, yeah, your quadriceps are definitely going to play a role at the bottom position as well when you start pressing out of it, but it just allows you to kind of engage a little more of your glutes. The second primary leg position that I think is tough for a lot of people is the face down on the glide board, kind of holding yourself on the glide board. I've taken the rails off mine to kind of help increase the grip of holding on, but you gotta be really careful you don't get your fingers trapped in the rollers, but on this model it seems to be pretty much okay. A big problem is kind of sliding off the glide board when you kind of set up, so you wanna make sure you got some nice grippy shoes, that's one thing. And then secondarily is having some sort of counterweight. You guys can't see it maybe, but I got some external resistance bands on here. The more weight, the better. It kind of helps kind of lock it in and pull you on down in the machine. I've said this in some past videos a long time ago that I really love this type of squat. I don't do it as much as I used to, but this is kind of one of my favorite positions to kind of get into. So practice with it, try it. But you're definitely gonna need some counterweight to kind of get into this position. And then finally, I almost wasn't even gonna cover this one, but since I have a lot of people that are afraid to actually get into this position, I understand, I thought I might as well show it. Because basically when you're lying face up on your back, it's good because it locks you in a nice secure position. But just having your butt on the ground and then simply kind of like a trust fall, kind of holding on tightly, I'm gonna kind of anchor and bend my knees here and I'm back nice and easy so that if my head's in the back, past and beyond the glide board, it's not necessarily a good thing. So if you can, kind of scoot yourself up a little bit here. Once I'm in this position, I'm in a great position to do, again, lateral raises, frontal raises, and of course, bicep curls here. Now the main question for most people is how do you get out of this position? And so for me, it's literally 2 steps. It's gonna be taking my feet and heels, throwing them straight to the ground, and then shooting my hands forward to get myself out and kind of flexing and curling my body upright in one motion. So something like this. All right, so I just threw my legs down, use my weight to kind of pull myself out. I have heard of people that get stuck up there and they just unfortunately have to let go one after the other and kind of roll themselves out. That's not ideal. So don't get in that position if you don't feel comfortable, and maybe don't put it in such a high incline. Just start low as you kind of gradually progress into that inverted position. All right, but that is it, guys. I didn't talk about the face down position for the inverted press. That's a little more kind of self-explanatory. There are some unique things you can kind of do there. You can do inverted lateral raises, some inverted curls, but honestly, the best inverted position face down on the glide board is gonna be the simple shoulder press. that is it on the foundational positions. There's a lot more. I probably should have broken down each position in greater detail, but I know there's a lot of people out there that either have this equipment, they never tried these things, they're kind of nervous about progressing on this equipment. And I've honestly always said this is one of the benefits and beauties of making the Total Gym kind of more unique and more of a skill-based machine, is that each of these positions is kind of a different skill set. And by getting into opening yourself up to different other positions, you then can open up other doors and other activities and other ways to ideally stress your muscles and also improve your functionality. So that's it, guys. Any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you.